All right, so welcome everyone to the International Symposium organized by Woxsen University in association with ETS. Today, we all have gathered in this Zoom meeting to discuss about how do we see global education being transformed in the next few years, and especially with the context of the business schools in higher education. So let me officially introduce the topic that we are going to discuss in this symposium today, which is reimagining global education in business schools. You know, creating global citizens and leaders from today's youth calls for very innovative curricula that supports new ways of teaching and learning. These curricula must also provide students with effective opportunities to develop the dispositions, knowledge, and capabilities to understand the world in which they live, to make sense of the ways globalization shapes their lives, and to be good stewards of the world's resources. Given the dynamically changing world around us, it is imperative for business schools to evaluate traditional modes and modus operandi that intentionally or inadvertently supports operating in academic solution, in academic isolation. The shifts that we have seen in the market demands for how business education is delivered, that is delivering business education to innovate, to constantly reinvent the wheel, and to unpack traditional full-time degree programs. This suggests that in addition to the traditional programs that we have across all the business schools, we should also look at, or at least evaluate, some short-term programs that may be very flexible, modularized, and just-in-time educational experiences that supports professionals throughout all stages of their careers. To help understand this dynamic, changing landscape in business education, we have invited the members of ETS for sharing their insights with us. It is my honor to introduce you to the moderator for today's symposium, Mr. Siddharth Iyer. Siddharth represents ETS, Educational Testing Service, TOEFL, TOEFL, as the designate country manager for India, which is the largest not-for-profit research and methodology measurement company globally. Siddharth has worked very extensively in the education domain for over 12 years now. I introduce the first speaker from the panel discussion, and that is Mr. Lijo Sam Omen, Managing Director of ETS India. Lijo is a seasoned business leader with deep management experience and wide business experiences developed working across locations and sectors. He has held various important assignments with leading organizations such as Reliance Money, ICICI Bank, and Axis Bank in India. Prior to joining ETS India, Lijo was the general manager at Pearson. Lijo, welcome to the panel discussion. We introduce the second speaker, Mr. Matthew Bashi Kadlibowski. Matthew is the Associate Director for Client Relations within the Global Education Division at ETS in Princeton, New Jersey. Matthew is responsible for outreach and communication for the GRE program within the US and Canada. We welcome you, Matthew. The third speaker is Michelle Hampton. Michelle is the Global Institutional Relations Director at ETS. She is responsible for supporting and communicating with higher education professionals, institutions, and government agencies that accept the TOEFL tests worldwide. We welcome you, Michelle. And our fourth speaker at the panel discussion is Ms. Tanya Bajaj. Tanya is the Client Relations Director for GRE at ETS India. In this role, Tanya actively engages with senior leaders at institutions, governments, stakeholders, and related organizations in the industry to enhance ETS's position primarily in the business school context in India. We welcome you, Tanya, to the panel discussion. And with this, I would like to hand over the platform to Siddharth for taking the discussion ahead. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, for a wonderful introduction and for introducing all panelists and the colleagues, that I'm joining from ETS. So good evening, everyone. My name is Siddharth. I represent ETS, leading marketing and outreach services for the ETS India program in country. ETS, to give you a brief context and background, is the largest non-for-profit research and assessments company globally. And for more than 70 years, ETS has developed products and services, which is based on rigorous research. Our belief in the power of learning as well is very well reflected in the tests that we deliver. The ETS portfolio, certainly consists of some of the world's most trusted assessments, including the GRE and the TOEFL tests. One fact that I'm certainly very proud of as a part of our tests and assessments, that it does help students learn, and the questions that we design are made in such a way so that learners pick up key skills as they prepare for these high-stake assessments. But we are so much more than the tests we deliver. With our mission to advance quality, equity in education, we deliver a lot of groundbreaking research with learning solutions so as to help students, educators, schools, business, and governments, and drive much more in order to understand what's possible and identify the next steps that we need to take to get there. Yet again, over the course of the day, we have a lot of interesting topics to be discussed with the esteemed panel and my colleagues joining in today from ETS India. So with the International Symposium, which is being arranged by the Woxsen University this evening, we are certainly very privileged to be a part of it, sharing our thoughts along with you guys. So let's start the session for the day, where I want to have a quick note and address, which is going to be made by Alberto. He's the AVP of Global Higher Education at ETS, who will be addressing our student and our audience joining in today from the ETS headquarters at Princeton, New Jersey. So I'm going to take a while to share this quick note in this video presentation with you so that all of you can take a look at this address.
Good evening. I'm pleased to join you all today for Woxsen University International Symposium on Reimagining Global Education in Business Schools. I am joined here by my ETS and ETS India colleagues, and we are pleased to be able to share in this event with you. As the team at Woxsen has mentioned, developing global citizens and the leaders of tomorrow calls for innovative tools and curricula that support new ways of teaching and learning. As we know, the last several years have seen immense change in the graduate education community. What has remained unchanged is the desire and need for graduate programs to recruit and admit a diverse, qualified group of students every year. And for these same students to be able to showcase their potential to institutions. To accomplish this, students and institutions must have access to the tools that allow students to showcase their potential and readiness for graduate level education, including the use of assessments like the GRE general test. Our ETS Global Higher Education team is envisioning a new future. We have given much thought to these needs, and over the last several years have made significant investments and fostered innovations to deliver what the global higher education field is asking us to do in order to have a successful future. A new morning for both the students and graduate schools. As part of our mission to advance quality and equity in education, ETS has been building a learner-centered portfolio that reimagines the educational experience for everyone. We are expanding our global higher education portfolio and diversifying our offerings to provide innovative tools and services that will support learners like you at every point in your graduate education journey. This is to help you from the first moment of considering graduate school, continuing your education, through the moment you've successfully completed your program and beyond. In addition, these tools and services will empower universities, and Woxsen is a great example of what we can do together so we can help make more informed decisions and achieve desired outcomes from recruitment and admissions through program success. With learners and graduate schools at the forefront of these initiatives, it is imperative that we also bring diverse perspectives to our work. We are accomplishing this in several ways, most notably through recent formations of advisory councils like the Business School Advisory Council in India. This group of distinguished colleagues provides expertise and guidance to ETS, serving as the voice of the Indian business education market to help inform our organization on how to best meet the needs of students and institutions in India. We are pleased to have Woxsen's own Dr. Raul Rodriguez as part of the council. We're working with him directly and with his team to ensure we bring innovation, transformation, and success to all. It is groups like this that continue to make a significant difference in how we serve the global higher education space. The insight and guidance we receive from them in serving both students and institutions globally is invaluable, and Woxsen is at the very center of all this. I am excited for the transformation ETS is undertaking in the global higher education space, and grateful to Woxsen and other important collaborators who are joining us in having important discussions around the future of global higher education. It is precisely these kinds of events and gatherings that make all the difference in us understanding from one another the challenges and opportunities that exist as we all continue to adapt to an external environment that is changing at a rapid pace. Given the change we have seen and all that is yet to come, we look forward to continuing to work alongside Woxsen to transform the future of higher education in India and beyond. Thank you.
So thanks so much, for listening in to this quick introduction that our IVP of Higher Education did want to share with the participating audience in here today. But over the course of the day, we would certainly want to gain more insights with regard to perspectives around higher education, how that is improving in country, and what are the paths that we are looking to undertake so as to make it more effective in this space of what ETS can also help push forward this narrative with improving the overall global higher education scenario and what we can collectively as a group come up with regard to thought leadership around the same. So without any further ado, I'm going to start off with the panel discussion by asking the first question to Lijo, who heads the ETS India offices. Lijo, I certainly wanted to kickstart this discussion, wanting to gain more insights from you with regard to what do you think are the key factors which contribute to bringing in quality in higher education in the post-pandemic scenario that we all are in? And we certainly want to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, thank you, Siddharth. Thanks, Chad, for setting the context. I mean, you brilliantly kind of summarized what you're looking forward and what the audience is looking forward from us. Quickly, Siddharth, I will just kind of rephrase your question. I think the factors that contribute to the ever-evolving pandemic, right? We don't have a post-pandemic or a pre-pandemic scenario now. So we have the second wave, we have the third wave. We're not too sure what we're going to get into and so on. So I think I will kind of rephrase it and answer the question as ever-evolving pandemic. And a couple of obvious sightings here. If you need to look at specifically on the graduate MBA space, things that are critical would be the quality of the faculty, the curriculum standards that we put in, the research environment which we build in for the students to kind of work on, the accreditation regime, the administrative policies which are set in. Obviously, financing is a big aspect. Evaluation and good governance would be the obvious bits of evolving the higher education during this difficult times, rather. Just to give an interesting bit to that, if you look at there was this global survey by Into University Partnership, basically among the Indian students who are I think who are part of our audience today, the under 25, the age group of under 25 and below. It was interesting to see that 67% of the Indian students were looking at a university which can give them skills which would make them succeed in future. And they were not even worried about the rankings. I mean, if you look at the rankings, where I think a good number 3 or number 4. I mean, they were looking at basically bringing in the employability quotient and applying whatever they learned in the graduate programs. I mean, how will that fit into the entire ecosystem of theirs? I think that is one interesting finding from this particular survey, which Into University Partnership had brought in. So building on this insight, what I would, I think the teacher is an important aspect of the ecosystem today. So with the data which we have and kind of building on it, like I mentioned, I think to evaluate the indicators of good teaching is important, to examine the policies that are there and how they value teaching, to examine the contribution of teachers, and basically getting in professional development programs for them is equally important. And also, I mean, the professional development of teachers, I think that's the key to building and making the ecosystem more future ready is what I would I would want to kind of state at this point in time. So looking at, like everybody is aware, pandemic has kind of shifted the dimension, the entire dynamics of the industry as such. So and kind of to assist and build a teacher ecosystem, we at ETS have very many product offerings, which I'm sure which we have built in, putting in years of research and so on. So that's one aspect which we can kind of work with leading universities and Woxsen going forward. Also, I think the pandemic has kind of put in a break to very many journeys. So with the ever evolving pandemic and the innovation which ETS has put in, we have looking at the current scenario, we have built in tests like the TOEFL at home, the GRE at home, which kind of you don't have to break the journey and your dreams. So we have such innovative products which ETS India is kind of bought in through Princeton, which students can use. So to sum up, Siddharth, it's basically building the teacher ecosystem and giving quality in education would kind of, the industry can move further, is what I believe. Thanks.
Thanks. I think that's really insightful. And yet again, teachers certainly are the crux of it, to improve quality in the higher education and with regard to what's being imparted to schools and institutions around the world. And without a doubt, as you summarized it very correctly, Lijo, our goal at ETS has always been, with the purpose of standardized testing, is to provide very fair, valid, reliable assessments, that produce meaningful results, which certainly teachers and faculty being at the forefront will be able to use to eliminate bias and prevent any unfair advantages by utilizing tests and assessments to create a more holistic admission process for us as well. So thanks so much, Lijo, for sharing those insights. I think they were really useful for us to know. My next question, Matt, would certainly be over to you. Leading on with what Lijo has also shared, we wanted to understand from you that how do you see global education evolving in business schools right now? And we would certainly, want to hear more also from a US perspective with regard to how it's been there and what are the factors or attributes that Indian institutions can probably also learn from their own. Let me just try and ask you to unmute.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Okay. Well, COVID-19, as you know, has caused universities worldwide to really reimagine how they're delivering their classes, whether it be virtually, in person, or even in a hybrid model. This has placed many of the international exchange programs that MBA students historically have that they participated on on hold. However, one thing is certain, COVID-19 has reinforced the need for international collaboration, not only in education, but for really finding solutions for global challenges. Travel restrictions also have been put in place in many countries, but this really hasn't changed the ambition of students really wanting to study internationally. Personally, I'm seeing an increase globally in the number of students applying not only to graduate programs, but also business programs in particular, especially in India. And since March of 2020, the GRE General Test at Home has enabled students to take the test safely from their homes. And to date, we've had more than 338,000 GRE registrations for at-home testing, which has really helped provide a seamless flow with respect to the graduate application process.
That's really interesting to know. And yet again, I can certainly vouch, the acceptance of that, within the India market has been taken very well. With also leading on to that, Michelle, I'll probably come to you, wanting to understand a little bit more about the post-pandemic scenario with regard to us kind of looking to reimagine higher education through virtual learning and disruptive technologies. What are the avenues that institutions have taken, to kind of implement this effectively within their schools?
Oh, thank you. It's an important question. This has been a frustrating and challenging time. It's not only a question of the skills and the knowledge being imparted by educators virtually, but it's also the fact that so many of the educators themselves didn't have the skills to use some of this new technology to teach remotely. So we know that COVID-19 obviously resulted in shutting down many of the schools across the world and continues to do so. Matter of fact, globally, over 1.2 billion students are out of the classroom, meaning they're learning from home or some other remote location. So classroom education had to change immediately and pivot to teaching being offered remotely and on digital platforms, which caused a distinctive and rapid increase in e-learning. Research suggests that online learning has been shown, to increase retention of information. So that's a benefit, and it does take less time. And the meaning is that these changes are brought on by the coronavirus are likely going to stay because it has been so productive. Even before COVID-19 arrived, there were already a high number of educational institutions that were offering educational technology or utilizing education technology or EdTech. In fact, global EdTech investments here in the US were reaching $18.66 billion in 2019. So already we were headed that way. We just had to rapidly change and institute it across the board. So the overall market for online education is projected to reach $350 billion by the year 2025. Whether it's the language apps that you can now do on your phone or virtually, virtual tutoring, video conferencing tools, or online learning software, there's been really a significant surge in the kind of online ways in which we engage in higher education, thanks to the onset of COVID-19. But I mentioned before, one of the concerns is that the educators really weren't ready to have to instantly input some of these new changes and new technologies. So there's been a really steep learning curve for them. And we need to look at how we can provide support for those educators. They needed a great deal of training, some of them, in areas of communication and feedback, promoting interaction between and amongst learners. When you have a large group online, it really is an interesting dynamic. They had to learn how to better utilize the teamwork aspect and collaboration in this virtual setting, administrative and support services, what's needed for an online class versus one in person, conducting learner needs assessments. So trying to test these students who are taking the classes virtually when you don't have them coming to your classroom. Distance learning technology and its impact on the learners. We have to be sensitive to the fact that not every student has the same access to technology around the world as every other person. Identifying learning styles, are some impacted by this remote aspect? and developing a systems perspective of thinking. So we have to utilize that technology. And so I can proudly say, really, that ETS as a pioneer in the testing industry really has embraced these kinds of ways in which we can incorporate ed tech in providing not only assessments to our potential students, but also supporting their need to learn and educators in the classroom. And I know that Leisha already mentioned, we had the at-home version of the TOEFL IBT test and at-home of GRE, and being able to bring those about so quickly. We had them ready to go in March of 2020. That's rapid for us because we also had stopped working in our offices in March of 2020. So that's really impressive. And it is the TOEFL IBT test, whether you're taking it at home or you're taking it in a test center, or you're doing the new assessment, the paper edition, which combines both at-home testing and test center testing. You are really able to still take the exact same test, no matter the way in which you take it. It's scored the same way, you're getting the same results, and institutions can have the same confidence in it. It's the same pricing, so it really doesn't matter. The student can look at it from what best suits their learning style or the way in which they want to operate. And being able to give them those choices is very important. We do employ rigorous security conditions in all three settings so that we can, again, with confidence, ensure the students that they're going to have an excellent testing experience, but make sure that institutions can have confidence in the scores they're receiving and accept students who take all those different assessments. So we're really in a situation where the TOEFL portfolio is able to make the opportunity to pursue higher education still happen for students, regardless of how they're impacted by COVID-19.
True. Thanks so much, Michelle. And these insights certainly are so relevant, especially when it comes just to the opportunities that exist, even in this post-pandemic scenario, where though travel certainly has been restricted, across various countries, and it has been affected, but overall learning still continues. And this implies not just for students and test takers, and certainly it does imply for educators themselves. I remember, right at the start, where we used to struggle to, share screens and turn on the audio at the time when we were presenting. So that's such a challenge to overcome to begin with. But yet again, I think, we will have made progress and we will continue to do so. So thanks, Michelle, for those insights. Tanya, I'll come over to you since, you certainly have more deeper knowledge with the India perspective. We wanted to understand from you, Tanya, what were the attributes, or what are the attributes that business schools should certainly focus on in terms of educating students to actually make them globally accepted. And we certainly want your insights from an Indian student learner's perspective. So over to you, Tanya.
Sure. Thank you for that question. And I really appreciate how Michelle kind of led up to all the things that I'm going to start saying right now. The kind of attributes that, would be important for business schools to focus on. At this point, students who are looking to work in a global environment must consider going back to school for an MBA, which ideally would provide them advanced leadership skills, comprehensive business knowledge, as well as networking opportunities, which can put students on the path to achieving their goals. With this, they will be able to gain a broad knowledge, a business knowledge, leadership training that will have a valuable impact on their career. If we look at the benefits that business education will provide for them given these times, I think schools should facilitate giving them a breadth of general business knowledge, opportunity for salary increases, more job opportunities, accelerated advancement, and greater job security that obviously will come in once you have is the background bothering you?
No, I think it's pretty clear. We are still able to hear your voice, so shouldn't we? But
yeah. So I was saying that the benefits of business school education would ideally include accelerated advancements and greater job security, along with giving them a stronger professional business network. So all of these points put in together will give them a wholesome experience going forward.
Interesting. Yeah, certainly good to know. Yet again, I can't emphasize more with regard to creating that holistic learning atmosphere, both within classrooms and also, the experience that they get out of working will certainly help them improve their employment opportunities and prospects in terms of the global education and improving their higher education learning as well. So great. Thanks for sharing those insights with us, Tanya. Yet again, to all participants who are joining us today, if you do have questions to the panel, you can certainly post them on the chat box. We would want to take them up towards the end of the session. So you can continue to post your questions in the chat, and you can address it to any particular panelist that you would want to. If you are not too clear about it, you may as well send it across, and I'll assign those questions to any panel member towards the end of the session. But continuing and moving forward, wanting to learn more on the higher education space, Lijo, I certainly want to probably come back to you with regard to learning. How do you see collaboration as a key win-win relationship for students' progress, especially when it comes to particularly talking about institutional development in general in the higher education space?
Super. Okay, I'm sure all of us acknowledge that education and knowledge collaboration, it kind of holds nations together, or kind of brings them together, or kind of push them back, right? What we've recently done with the NEP coming in place, the opportunity and the wider opportunity it's given us to further deepen our academic, scientific, and research collaboration with countries. I would obviously want to bring in the United States. It is immense, right? So that's one aspect of collaboration. I think the NEP implementation, I'm sure most of us would agree, is the key, and I'm sure the government has the intent for us to kind of for them to have it implemented on priority. And we are seeing it in different pockets in different states, kind of coming and embracing it. So I think with the NEP coming in, the collaboration gains more weightage, and working with different nations, I think it'll kind of it's going to further strengthen, and it's going to further deepen. Just to give an example, if you look at the student exchange visitor program, the SEVP figures from the U.S. Immigration and Custom Enforcement, it points out that there were 207,460 or 207,460 in Indian parlance. Which is just second to China, right? The number of students going from India to these countries. So it's a significant number. Again, and obviously the collaboration, obviously it kind of adds to the economies, it works for the nations as such. But again, on a student's perspective, I think it builds better cultural understanding, communication skills, the knowledge and awareness of the wider world, and a whole wide world, which they're going to see, right? With a new lens. And if you look at most of our key technology CEOs who are based there, I've had this exposure. They're able to build large organizations with their expertise and so on and so forth. So, and again, if you look at technology, like Siddharth mentioned, we used to struggle to kind of put in a screen share and so on. But again, the Zooms and the Skypes and the Googles have kind of even what do I say? The entire breadth and length of the country or the world globe, I think the world is further shrunk. And these are all obviously low cost options which students have. So it is critical. Collaboration is critical, basically enhancing one's knowledge, the country's growth, and so on. So I would believe collaboration is the way forward for us, Siddharth.
Interesting. Yeah, thanks so much. And yet again, certainly cross-cultural collaborations have tons of benefit, both to Indian institutions and for other foreign universities looking to collaborate here with institutions in India. It has paved the way for so many of them to be able to learn even at a time when they were all studying and learning from home. The possibility of probably getting into a country, getting different perspectives, from peers all around the world certainly does help them make global citizens as well. Matt, I would want to bring you in out here. Also, coming back to the business and the MBA perspective, with regard to what would your advice be to MBA applicants who are thinking about their futures right now in this time scenario?
Sure. Eventually our life and our economy is slowly going to be returned to normal. So I feel students really need to be prepared for the future. So I encourage students to move forward in applying for their MBA. Personally speaking, I have an undergraduate degree in business, and that really gave me the foundation skills that I needed to move forward in getting my graduate degree. Business schools provide students with the tools and training that they really need to be successful in any profession that they're going to, eventually get into after graduation. So during the pandemic, while things may have slowed down, I really encourage, any student today to really move forward with their educational journey and consider taking the GRE as the first step in the graduate education process. If you're not aware, GRE scores are valid for more than 5 years, or actually valid for 5 years. And studies have suggested that students will actually achieve a higher score if they take the test while they're still in an academic mindset. So if you are not already aware, several of the top ranked business schools in India accept GRE scores for various degree and MBA programs. And I know Tanya actually had mentioned briefly holistic admissions. If you're not aware, holistic admissions, especially in the US, is becoming a new trend. And in holistic admissions, students are looked at holistically. So it's just not about grades and standardized test scores, but also work experience, letters of reference, interviews, personal statements, really looking at a student and everything that they've done, thus far to be successful in their educational journey. And I think that's really important.
Thanks. Yeah, certainly, Matt, for stressing on that. And I can't, agree more with regard to having that holistic application process for a student to be able to submit that very confidently to a university, and how our tests and assessments certainly add value to the same. Michelle, coming back to you, what do you think, is that like an innovation idea, movement, or, methodology that you're seeing that really excites you in terms of the future of global education, also from a higher education perspective, if you can let us know?
Certainly, I am truly excited about the fact that I think that incorporating e-learning is going to continue, if not actually accelerate, as we move forward. Once we've let that genie out of the bottle, we can't put it back in. I do think there were so many advantages to both educators and students in being able to incorporate it. I know many mentioned that they were able to bring in speakers for their classes that were based in other parts of the world that they would never be able to have come to campus and present and talk to their students. So that kind of engagement is important. But another thing that we've seen is that institutions really used this COVID experience as an example for some of the courses that they taught. For example, Imperial College in London started offering a course on the science of coronavirus. And it became one of the most enrolled online classes launched on Coursera in 2020. So that's fascinating. It's a part of history, and it's something to learn about even as we're going through it, and it's constantly evolving. So we do know, though, that this experience has brought out some significant challenges. We are definitely in a situation where not every single student around the world has equal access to a reliable internet connection, or even the technology to access the internet, and therefore online classes and web cameras even. So it's been really a struggle for many students to participate in these online courses and digital learning. And that gap is seen across between countries and across economic brackets within countries. So it's not an easily solved problem because it is global. But overall, the global pandemic has impacted the educational landscape around the world and has made it more difficult for students to plan for the future. As we've seen, certainly with the different variants popping up, and as we mentioned earlier in this call, whether or not you can safely get into a country to study changes daily. So those things are certainly causing some students to postpone their educational plans, their higher ed plans. But we've also seen some other students who have taken full advantage of the fact that some countries and some governments are saying, listen, we definitely want to bring you to our shores. We're doing everything we can to make it as easy as possible right now. Everything from providing testing of their own students on campus for COVID to vouching for students to get them through the actual immigration process. So some students are eagerly taking advantage of some of these opportunities. And it has meant that it gives them a chance to apply, maybe to some of the top universities in a situation or a time frame where they might not have normally been able to apply. Another thing, innovation-wise, that we're seeing is that ETS, as I mentioned, really stepped up as a testing company to make sure that students didn't have the barrier of not being able to physically get out of their house to get to a test center to take the test as the reason to prevent them from pursuing higher education. Instead, not only did we create the at-home version of both TOEFL and GRE, but we also recently released the combination for IBT paper edition in India that looks at using both a testing center experience and for 3 of the skills. And then the speaking is done at home for the writing, speaking is done at home for the paper edition on their own computer. So it really is a wonderful opportunity for all of us to look at how we see higher education moving forward, removing any roadblocks to the pursuit of it that we can, and making sure that in the case of TOEFL, we also release the Essentials test, which is another at-home assessment, right now strictly available at home, but it looks at English language proficiency, both in an academic context like IBT does, but it also, Essentials also incorporates everyday English proficiency, so that for students who are maybe looking to go, immediately into a field where there will be a variety of candidates or people that they're working with, they may want to pursue the Essentials test, or it could be that the university is accepting both and the student is going to try both assessments to see how they perform. But it's wonderful to have the opportunity to try the Essentials because it's just slightly different. It's a shorter, faster paced assessment. It's 90 minutes versus the 3 hours for the IBT test. Again, as I mentioned, it can be taken at home. So you have the same technology that we use to support at-home testing, but it is a multi-stage adaptive test, which is how we could shorten it. And what that means is that the student questions are being measured efficiently to match their English proficiency with what it is we're trying to measure. So very quickly and very pointedly, we can assess their proficiency. So making sure that we're giving opportunities to as many variety of students and people who want to prove their English proficiency out there in the world for jobs or for education means that we're helping more and more people achieve their goals.
That's interesting. Really good to know, at least with regard to the efforts certainly ETS has put in these spaces for us to be able to enhance the learner's experience as well. But among the other innovations, not just in terms of education, it certainly improved even in terms of entertainment, Michelle. Without a doubt, the year end, saw me attending, rock shows online to celebrate it, even though we were at home, but we felt a part of a global community. So let's see how that pans out for us moving forward with regard to more innovations that we see in this field and area. Coming back, to this topic yet again, we also wanted to probably check in with you, Tanya, with regard to what is the overall state of MBA admissions right now here in India, and is now the right time to head into a business school? What are your perspectives and thoughts on that?
Well, that's a very good question, Siddharth. Thank you for asking me that. Since, over the course of my career and speaking to so many admission professionals from all over the country, from a variety of business schools, let it be from the top 10 ranking schools or to the ones who are more regionally focused, a common observation here has been that they have been successfully retooling their curriculums, adapting to the virtual hybrid settings, updating their content so that they can give fresh, updated information and case studies to students and prepare them more so for the post-COVID and the COVID world, right? Apart from, as Michelle rightly pointed out, there has been so much disruption technologically as well, building virtual campuses to building virtual classes, online assessments have now become such common practice. And it's truly commendable how schools are now leveraging all of these new technologies and trying to create a balance and helping students not sacrifice those one-on-one connections that truly is the essence. and which adds so much to a student's learning experience. We've commonly heard of, coffee chats that they want to have with their students, intimate conversations they're able to have. If there's so much that can happen even to your mental health when you're just stuck at home. So colleges, admission officers, they're really going the extra mile to ensure that the students are happy, healthy, learning what they need to learn at these times. That said, a big part of all of these disruptions is, the admissions tests. We all want to be able to provide for them the platform, which we have done at GRE as well, to be able to swiftly move towards digital format and help students take the tests from the comfort of their own homes. The final goal here being to let the students stand out with their academic performance, which can be displayed only through a GRE test. But they're able to do that as well as not break the cycle for colleges for their admissions. So there's been so much work going on. And the best part is that every single school, the application volumes have grown. There has been more students who've been sitting for classes online. And this is actually a really good time to go to business school. This is the time where the world is going through so much change, and and all these changes are coming so fast. And what better platform will a student have than to be in a business school, trying to study, learning and experiencing all of these new technologies firsthand, and learning and finding new ways to work together, even if it's remotely. So that's my take on it.
Thanks so much, Tanya. And yet again, certainly I have learned a lot, by interacting with colleagues around the world. And probably this has only been possible because of the onset that we all are sitting inside our rooms in a pandemic, looking at each other. We'd rather talk to people around the world rather than sit and do nothing and not travel. But yet again, I think Indian business schools have also responded really well in this regard, where they've been able to promote the learnings that they are able to provide in campus, in country itself. And India has certainly taken a lot of leaps in the right direction to be able to enhance the higher education which is being provided in country. So coming back, probably leading to another question to you, Matt. We want to learn from you with regard to what can institutions do to aim for global excellence and also side by side create value for the future.
Sure. Siddharth, that's an excellent question. Achieving global excellence is not an easy task, as you may think. And many colleges and universities, they have excellent reputations, faculty, technology, libraries, external resources, of course, funding with grants and scholarships and fellowships. However, excellence in business education stems from really having the right mix of all these factors, in addition to not only remaining current and proactive, with respect to practices, principles, being aware of the changing nature of the market for business education, job requirements, developing adaptive strategies to respond to changes in the market. And, today's business programs, schools and colleges, are highly shaped by accreditation types and accreditation standards. Accreditation agencies that really dominate the market are, AACSB, which is the Association to Advance Collegiate Schools of Business, IACBE, which is the International Assembly for Collegiate Business Education, and ACBSP, which is the Accreditation Council for Business Schools and Programs. So, in summary, business schools and colleges really need to prepare, for the century and be able to not only produce results, but also provide, evidence of student success, and of course, more importantly, graduate success. And where are their graduates working? Where are they going? And et cetera, et cetera. So again, they have a lot to follow through with.
That's interesting. Yeah, good to know. And yet again, by having these accreditation bodies, which are put in place, it certainly is able to create benchmarking standards also for the industry at large. I think that has certainly helped the narrative for institutions, to be able to determine and to bring them all, to global standards which have been set around the world. So interesting. Great developments to know, Matt. So yet again, I'll probably, ask a final question to Lijo before, we close the panel and take up more questions coming in from the audience. And that's certainly more which we would want to hear and kind of interact with the people who've come in and joined us for the session today. Lijo, my final question to you, to lead on to the close of the panel is, what are the skill sets that you believe that the industry is now really looking at when they look to hire globally? We would certainly, want you to give an India perspective to it, also with regard to what global expectations have been here.
Yeah, again, see, it's a small world now. So in the India context and the global context, I think it's all weaved in together, right? I mean, that's how we've evolved in the pandemic era and so on. So it would have been ideally three skill sets which I would have. I developed myself. So one was the communication and collaboration bit of it, creative and critical thinking, I think, which is very important, and the intercultural competence, right? So if we are able to get all colleagues on board. If we are to, if we don't have that competence to kind of work culturally among different places, I think it's going to be a challenge. But I think the two additions in this pandemic era would be the emotional self-regulation and well-being. I think it is very critical. I think Tanya touched upon it, and it's very important that we kind of take care of ourselves, build on that particular emotional self-regulation and well-being bit of it. And last but not the least, I think one of the most important today is the digital literacies, right? I mean, we have the technology. If we can't use them, I think it's going to be a challenge. So I think we need to ever evolve in digital, right? You have a Zoom coming in, you have another application coming in. I'm so outdated is what I kind of feel with the way technology is moving up. And just to add, if you look at India is a dominant workforce, like we started the conversation, right? It's very important that our workforce has the right skill sets for us to be corporate ready. I think that is another key area. I'm sure which institution like Woxsen and across India they're building on, they're working on, and so on and so forth. As ETS, what our key objective obviously is to support this growth within the Indian workforce. We provide assessments, learning products, which basically you go through the learning, you are assessed, and you basically make you better workers for tomorrow. We also want to contribute. We want to be a contributor and an asset to the Indian students in the English language space, like you heard Michelle, Matt, and Tanya talk about our GRE and TOEFL examinations, right? And which kind of helps you in these pandemic situations also. So again, we're looking at building high quality learning products, assistive tools, and we want to play a significant role in the learner's journey. All across is what we're looking at. Again, like I mentioned, so from the journey to the workforce space is what ETS India is looking to play a part with, and we're happy to kind of work with the institutions and the students likewise to build a better ecosystem. Thanks, Siddharth.
Thanks so much, and great insights. Digital literacy, certainly cross-cultural relationships certainly help a lot of people. And for that instance, I can just remember, I have a Tamil friend, he has a South Korean wife. They never fought during the entire pandemic. Thankfully, because he doesn't understand a word she speaks. But yet again, jokes aside, this learning, for people from different cultures coming together, on a global platform to be able to learn virtually has certainly helped a lot. We made great strides in the global higher education space. We've been able to kind of learn off each other and learn from various institutions and their best practices as well. Yet again, I'll probably ask the audience, coming in out here, to post any questions that they have to panel members. But I'll begin by taking the first question that I see up here on the chat. And this question is addressed to you, Tanya. And Tanya, I'll ask you to address it, but if anyone wants to step in and add to this, you can certainly do so. Tanya, the question, which is coming in from Mr. Rana is, how can we practically prepare new graduates to join the workforce? And what do you think are the specific skills needed there? I'll first have you address this, and the follow through to that is: do you think that theoretical courses like leadership, entrepreneurship are sufficient to habituate them to join international companies? Any suggestions there?
Sorry, that is again a very good question, Rana. Thank you for asking me that. Given the fact that a lot of the skills are changing, upgrading, disrupting, there is so much happening, and obviously with the new way of working will bring about newer skills that will be more required. More 21st century skills is what we will be needing. So I think if you ask me, post-COVID, the skills that are gaining importance are the ability to navigate the challenges of tech disruption that has been previously very well discussed and covered in this topic. Stronger communication skills is another great big one. Being innovative, adaptive, and having a versatile skill set will also help these students. Ability to handle global complex business environments. As you know, working across borders is now such a simple thing. Anybody and everybody, we are working with Koreans, Chinese, Americans, Indians, all of us are all over the place. So I think having these skills in order will again be very beneficial to the students. To be able to hit the ground running is another big one, I feel. Right out of the MBA, you know, the expectations are skyrocketing, whether it's corporate, whether it's your family, whether it's your own self, right? You want to be able to do more than you have in the past, and to also be able to take a leadership role. These are the points that it's going to go into everybody's minds. And these are the skills I feel will benefit a lot, apart from the education that they will be receiving from the colleges, I feel. I hope that answers your question.
I think that was very insightful. Thanks.
Yeah. The second is, do you think theoretical courses, leadership, entrepreneurship are sufficient to habilitate them to join international companies? Absolutely, yes. I think in combination, having the theoretical knowledge as well as a practical experience through business case studies, through role plays, there's so many activities that happen in business schools. So I think if everything is done in combination with the leadership, true leadership and good faculty, internship opportunities, all of these things will line up one after the other. That will ensure the students to put them to the path of success. That's my take on this. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Tanya. Without a doubt, the kind of experiential learning that you're able to get in business schools these days, to be able to work while you're studying, that certainly helps a lot, and puts them and students help, it certainly helps them stand apart and learn these skills at a very early stage in their careers as well. So.
And I think the fact that students take time right after they graduate, they'll take a little bit of a break, they'll go to the workforce for a little while. And then when you go back into an MBA, I think that's a very enriching experience for them to be able to, to be able to learn from the mistakes they've made and apply their new learnings going forward. I think the way this pans out is very beneficial. And there are enough and more colleges in India as well as abroad who facilitate this. So.
True. That certainly does help, without a doubt. Thanks so much, Tanya. There's yet another question that I see that has come in from Kevin. Let me ask, Michelle to address this if possible. Michelle, could you probably share insights on what skill sets are global institutions looking for in students in the age of the pandemic?
Well, certainly facility with technology is important to them, because whether it's the fact that the courses themselves are online, or just the fact that the course is structured that you have to participate in discussion groups online. As a team, you might have to read certain articles, prepare a report, and do your research together and present a paper. So you're already working online to complete those tasks. So facility with that kind of technology is important. Time management will always be critical, no matter what degree you pursue, because you need to be able to understand not only when a project is due, but what are the many steps that are necessary to produce that end product, and how can you build in time to sufficiently complete each of those steps so that the end result has the impact that you want, and therefore be able to earn the grade that you're striving for. Teamwork certainly is important. I mentioned obviously the discussion groups, etc., but it is the ability to work well with others and understand that while you may have great ideas and be dominant personalities, there's a lot to learn from the quietest person in the group. So it is often a case where you need to be able to step away from yourself and listen actively to what others are saying, and know how to successfully engage those who are remaining quiet. That can make a difference in any boardroom, in any meeting, and certainly in any activity at the university or graduate school level. Those would be my suggestions.
Yeah, and thanks so much for sharing those insights. Matt, do you want to add on to that?
Yes, actually, in my new role at ETS, I work almost daily with the graduate faculty at a variety of institutions. And the two biggest complaints that I hear from grad faculty are, that students don't have the communication skills that they need, and also the writing skills. Students, a tendency not to turn on their cameras. They don't communicate, with the faculty correctly or on a continuous basis, and their writing skills really need to be improved upon. So I really stress those two skills in addition to what Michelle stated as well.
Yeah, thanks so much. Yet again, but to add, to Michelle's point in there in terms of understanding that team dynamics with regard to how to ensure that every person inside the room is contributing. It can certainly happen more effectively when you're doing in-person meetings. It can be a challenge on the virtual platform, but we need to adapt and learn, to be able to come to that. So sounds good. And yet again, Matt cannot re-emphasize, with regard to how writing skills are so important and so critical, to be able to articulate your thoughts effectively and to be able to put them on paper, to have original, content being created, with regard to any case or anything that you're working academically. That certainly does help students gain a lot of strides when they are studying abroad. So. Thanks so much for that. I have a couple of other questions, that I probably want to take up before I move on and close the session. There's a question which has come in from Kevin, and Lijo, if you can probably look to address that. I think it's Sahiti. She's asked that, I think, how effective can digital learning be, considering it is a massive part of our education at the moment, and it might be in the future as well. So digital learning is something that we want to learn more.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just give you a context. I think the large publications, maybe prior to the pandemic and so on, they were looking to have the digital content pushed out into the ecosystem. It was much cost effective, right, to push in digital content, so you can add content and so on and so forth. So what has happened is pandemic has pushed everybody into the digital space as such. So the amount of work which these large corporations had to put in, they didn't have to, right? Look at the Byju's and the likes. I mean, the way they've evolved from the tons of and the millions of dollars which has been spent into communication and so on and so forth. Is it effective? The efficacies, I don't think we've yet found any study where we kind of the efficacies or reports coming out saying that yes, we did a digital education mode and we've kind of succeeded and so on. I think it's too early for us to comment at this point in time, is what I believe. But again, I largely believe in blended learning. I think we need to see both the worlds, right? It's again like Michelle mentioned, there are these quiet ones in the class. How do you engage them while you're kind of doing a digital learning? It's challenging. So I think the world should evolve, or we will evolve into a blended mode of learning. I think that should be more effective. I wouldn't want to comment on the virtual bit at this point in time because we don't have data to support us. But personally, yes, I would vouch for a blended kind of mode. Thank you, sir.
Interesting. That's really interesting. Good to learn as well. So Chahat certainly has asked a question which is coming in. Michelle, this is directed to you. How do you see industry academia interface and that interface moving forward? What are the steps that we can look to develop there?
Well, I think we'll continue to see the business world reaching back into the academy to say, how can we support you so that when we come on site and hire your graduates, we know that they're ready to hit the ground running. So it might mean that they're going to deeply focus with faculty on what sort of gaps or concerns are you seeing in your students' background right now? What can we do to support them? Matt had mentioned earlier that unfortunately, some of the work opportunities or study practical opportunities in the business world for graduate students in the MBA programs have been put on hold, or in some cases, fewer have been offered because of what's gone on with the pandemic. A lot of businesses are not able to function in their normal capacity. So it has meant also, too, that it has been possibly more competitive to get some of those positions. So students need to be proactive, as do the educators, and find out what will make the difference to you, business X, Y, or Z. What do I have to arm my students with so that they are the best candidates for you for those competitive internships and work experiences so that they can go forward in their careers with an outstanding background. So it really is a two-pronged process. The educators have got to find out what it is that the businesses need, how to then tool up their students to be able to meet that need. And then, excuse me, the business world has got to find out how can we support the students in their learning experiences? What kind of opportunities and new innovations can we create, possibly online or else in person, for students to be able to compete in the business world?
Sounds interesting. Thanks so much for that, Michelle. But yet again, I'd probably want to, close the session with regard to a few final comments, that I've certainly picked up from all panelists who've joined us here today with regard to making the ecosystem more future ready in terms of business school education is something that is set and we want to do. Reimagining classroom teaching with the use of technology and the tools which are available for us is certainly something that we need to do more effectively. With our education and our learning systems which are being created. And virtual learning and tech disruptions that we see in this space certainly will add to the value of higher education that we are looking to build out over the last year. And I'm certain that all of us, who are there sitting here in the room, have faced a lot of challenging times, both here in India, in the US, where we've been personally affected, with the loss of loved ones, with the COVID situation getting soon. And so I certainly hope and pray that, that the third wave of COVID, kind of dies down soon here in India, in the US, so that all of us together will be able to restart learnings in person. In full rigor, probably just the way probably we were before the pandemic. If not, then we would certainly want to adopt the hybrid modes of learning more effectively going forward in business school education as well. Yet again, at ETS, the commitment that we have towards fairness that inspired the creation of so many tests and assessments that have been made till date, it remains a part of our mission, to advance quality, equity in education worldwide. The mission at ETS certainly informs of the core values that we have with enhancing and giving opportunity to all, being able to, democratize access to our tests is certainly that we've been able to do very effectively in the pandemic in country. And it has brought us back to life every day with the dedicated work, that my colleagues have undertaken who joined us here on the panel today. So I'd now like to take a check on the time. And Chahat, over to you for any closing remarks that you want to make.
All right, thank you so much, Siddharth, and thank you to all the panelists, and special thanks to you, Siddharth, for moderating this so well. The topic that we have discussed, reimagining global education and business schools, was well justified by each of your insights coming from Lijo, Matthew, Michelle, Tanya. I think it was a perfect concoction of insights that we needed this evening to understand how do we see the transformation going forward. And ETS, I think has been a great partner for us in this initiative. And Woxsen University is looking forward to more such engagements, on the academic, on the corporate side, making, as I said, one of the questions which I posed to Michelle regarding the industry academia interface. That's what we are also looking to strengthen with this relationship with ETS. Thank you so much to all the participants, the attendees from different parts of the world joining in to this panel discussion. And we hope to see you again sometime very soon. To those who we could not take up your questions due to the paucity of time, please feel free to get in touch with any of us from ETS or Woxsen, and we will be very happy to take up your questions offline. Thank you so much. Thank you once again.
Thank you so much, everyone. Bye.
Thank you, John. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Bye. Bye.
Bye. Good evening.
Good luck.